There are widespread protests being planned for the United States this weekend. It's called the No Kings protest. Will there be a false flag? What kind of violence will erupt? Let's check it out. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Chris Martenson of Peak Prosperity here with another report for you. This is a weekend report. And by the way, like all weekend reports, it has two parts. Part one for public. You're probably watching this public part. It's a special scouting report. We're going to talk about the No Kings event. What is that? I'll tell you in. And also, I think these are ripe for a melee. Beware the 14th of June. This is Saturday. This is going to happen all over the place. They're well funded. The question is, what kind of shenanigans and malarkey are going to happen? Second, I have to talk about how Israel just attacked Iran. Big sigh for that one. That's for subscribers. A lot of very potent implications for that. We got to talk about that because you know what we care about at Peak Prosperity. Awareness leading to informed action. It's time to get prepared. So carrying on first, No Kings. Here it is. They have a nice website, nokings.org down there. And they say they've defied our courts. So again, this is the our democracy crowd, but the our should have quotes around it because it's the possessive use of our, not our, the collective, everybody, our, all of our courts. They mean our courts. They like it when our courts are charging people. They want charged, but they don't like it when the courts rule against them. So this is how these people operate. I think the way I'm interpreting it, there's a lot of people in the United States that they're either getting exactly what they want or they're behaving very badly about it. I think this is a chance for a lot of bad behavior. So they say, quote, they, you can figure out who they is, they've defied our courts, deported Americans, disappeared people off the streets as if this was like Chile, 1975 or something, attacked our civil rights and slashed our services. The corruption has gone too far. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. That's sort of, you can get the vibe off of that. You can figure out what's at stake here. By the way, Chris Williams on Twitter, I thought captured it well and by saying, quote, our country was run by an unknown, unelected group of people hiding behind a dementia patient. But yes, let's have a No Kings Day. And of course, with the Steve Carell from The Office gif. Let's listen in. Azra Nomani points out here that, first off, who's funding this anti-Trump No Kings protest? This is all well funded. This isn't just spontaneously people showing up and deciding to express something. A few of them are, but a lot of this is funded to the tune of 198 companies with 2.1 billion in revenues. I'm not saying they're spending all their revenues on these protests, but these are well-funded protests. I'm bringing the receipts for you next. She says, quote, I wanted to hear it straight from the source. So on Tuesday, I tuned into a live No Kings town hall with Randy Weingarten and, of course, Leah Greenberg of the Indivisible team, who we've talked about before. So let's hear from Weingarten and Greenberg here real quick.
Leah, I didn't get to do an appropriate introduction of you, and you started Indivisible with your husband.
No Kings Day is 1,800 events. I think we'll hit 1,900 today, all over the country, in every single state. We got a lot of coverage. You are probably within 30 minutes of an event wherever you are. If you are not, consider yourself invited to host and run your own event.
And on it goes. I believe she and her husband are self-avowed atheists. So there's something about atheists that really revels in ruining good things. And that would include the functioning of the United States. This is getting pretty dicey, folks. Here are a few of the planned protest sites. Many of these dots are coincident, so they don't resolve. And in my own state, I think I counted 60 or 70 planned events. I don't know how many of them are going to have 0 people at them, 3 people, or lots and lots of people. But can we be clear about this? There are lots and lots. These are unconfirmed. I call this is anecdote, but here's a guy saying this.
I just got offered $200 a day to go protest ICE in New York. The organization was called No Kings. They said June 14th, we're going to be protesting and these are the streets that you need to be on and this is what you need to do. You need to cause chaotic disruptions. And they said that there's going to be pallets of like bricks and different things everywhere that protesters could use. They really want to wreak havoc. It's it's kind of ridiculous. Me as an American, although I...
All right. So listen, he could be making this up. I don't know for sure. I have not received any payment vouchers or promises for payment from No Kings, but I haven't promised to go to anything. So I don't know. It could be. But here's the thing that we know about what the organizers of these sorts of events want. They want a reaction. So they're going to provoke. And what they're looking for is a couple of good minutes of film, right? They would like to see something where a policeman finally gets, an out of context clip maybe of a policeman firing a non-lethal round that causes somebody's eye to explode or something. That's what they're after. So they can get that clip out to continue fostering division and hatred and violence and sort of begin, continue the project of undermining the social fabric of this country. That is their true aim, and that's what they're after. This is very clear now. They're not after, these same people and companies are not interested in putting money into a productive enterprise. Like if this gentleman said, instead of throwing these bricks through Reebok store windows, I would like to build a pizza oven with them, and I just need $3,000 for my time. They would say, get out of here. Got nothing for you. Because they're not interested in putting their money into building, but they have lots of money. It seems infinite money for tearing things down. This is the model. We have to understand who and what we're up against at this point in time, okay? So Resilient Ratner here, THC0655, a commenter, a much valued commenter over at Peak Prosperity, wrote, Philly is not only on the map for Saturday, Philadelphia, and this person knows Philly intimately, said it looks like it might be a focus for the agitators nationwide. This over here is from a retired police lieutenant, said, quote, I just received from a very, very reliable source information, 5 pages about this upcoming Saturday scheduled melee. A melee like you could imagine in the old days with shields and giant battle war axes. That's a melee, 2 sides going at it. He says first he wants to say he'll never reveal where he got his information, but what's about to happen to Philadelphia is not good. Philadelphia was chosen to be the epicenter for unrest. Buses are coming from many states and cities across the country into Philly, and they are saying like 80,000 expected to be here in the city, includes the suburbs of Philly. It's going to be affected. There are threat actors. Good information, he says here. Threat actors coming into Philly. They are planning to exploit the main event and commit crimes, release violence and destruction within the city. This is how this side rolls. We are looking at another George Floyd 2020 Summer of Love. Mostly peaceful protests. The media is going to cover for them. There'll be a lot of apologists for this. These won't be violent protests, even though you will see blood and broken bones and maybe even deaths. This is about to happen again because these people are unhappy. And when they don't get their way, they react like a 5-year-old in the candy aisle at the store. This very low emotional intelligence, very low ability to self-regulate emotional states. It's because they're not coming at this from a logical, organized, cortical direction. They're coming from the amygdala. It's emotional. And the prime emotions that they're working with are anger, resentment, and envy. I think that about covers it. All right. So, hey, FBI, you know what? You might want to look into Philly because on the No Kings website, .org/district, they wrote here on June 14th, Flag Day. Donald Trump wants tanks in the streets and a made-for-TV display of dominance for his birthday. So that's in D.C., a spectacle meant to look like strength. But real power isn't staged in Washington. It rises up everywhere else. Instead of allowing this birthday parade to be the center of gravity, we will make action everywhere else the story of America that day. Action. Wink, wink. You following along? I know you are. So that's the story. They're going to make action everywhere else the story of the day. But for those of you who are going to these things, please be aware you are rats in a cage. You're pawns. These people are kind of hoping you get shot in the eye, preferably with it hanging out really grotesquely, shot in 4K so they can splash that all over the place to whoop up more hatred and envy and resentment and anger, because their whole purpose is not to make the country better. It's to tear things down and to scream and cry until they get things back their way. When, what do they want? They would rather have a dementia patient installed as president with an unelected shadowy cabal of people auto-penning their way to decisions that they like so that their courts and their democracy operate the way they want. That's the game. That's the whole game. So carrying on, quote, they said, for that reason, No Kings is not hosting an event in Washington, D.C. We will instead have a major flagship march and rally in Philadelphia. So keep your eyes on Philadelphia on Saturday, June 14th, and let's watch out for what might happen there. Now, on that front, American Patriot writing, breaking. Again, this is an anecdote, unconfirmed. I don't know this person. There's their Twitter handle, and there's the actual link to this Twitter post or X. Take it with a grain of salt. However, they are writing here, I have heard from a source inside the Pentagon that I cannot share their information that has told me that things are going to get very dangerous and violent around the United States on Saturday, June 14th. The source went on to say the likelihood of a coordinated, organized, and widespread attack on American cities is high, being masked behind the left's plans to protest to overthrow the government. Get ready, get stockpiled up, clean the guns, be on a swivel. Now, who is No Kings? Who are these people? Where did they suddenly come from? How do they have this website? Well, it turns out they have an endless list of partners. On their partners page, here's some people that they identify as partners. The Freedom From Religion Foundation, Gain Power, whatever that is, Greenpeace, Hold the Line. A lot of indivisibles in that big center yellow blob down there. Jewish Voice for Peace, Labor Today, some labor unions. Sounds a little, what we would call from the socialist side of things, for sure. So this feels like a socialist / communist movement. It's obviously, freedom from religion. So it's got a little atheist, socialist, communist kind of a vibe. If you're, well, it's because probably what it is. Now, you might be thinking that the AFL-CIO might be for protecting American jobs, but a big part of the No Kings framing is they don't like the fact that illegal aliens are being deported. Now, they didn't care when illegal aliens were being deported under Obama, under Clinton, way back when, under Bush, under Biden. Lots of illegal people got deported all the time. It's just suddenly, once it's under Trump, they've decided this is unacceptable. And Representative Anna Paulina Luna writes here, quote, I formally submitted a letter to the President of the United States requesting an immediate freeze on all federal funds authorized to the AFL-CIO, an organization that has received over $72 million taxpayer funding and is directly tied to the upcoming No Kings protests this Saturday. The American people are sick of watching all this, blah, blah, blah. She goes on and brings the goods, right? So there it is. Why would the AFL-CIO, they ought to be for Americans having good paying union jobs. By definition, that's not happening when you're bringing in illegal aliens who are undercutting American workers for pay, taking their jobs. I think they've lost the plot line, but that's happening a lot. So what is the plot line? We have to talk about this money trail. Okay, let's follow it. Data Republican for the win. Loving what Data Republican does over on X for the world. She wrote here, quote, just release follow the money behind the No Kings rally. So let's do that. Data Republican has launched an interactive open source map showing how your tax dollars, follow to organizations involved in the No Kings rally. She tracked funding from federal sources to final recipients, prioritizing direct paths whenever possible. Okay. Important. Most paths still went through donor-advised funds, the black box for the nonprofit world. Unfortunately, it's a common and opaque funding structure that deserves scrutiny. So guess what? The people involved in this have spent decades figuring out how to hide their tracks, make it as confusing as possible. And when she tracks it, she finds charts, flow charts that look like this. She visualizes all this, which helps a lot. Okay. Here is the money trail. So let's start all the way on the left, and we'll go through a couple of these boxes just to sort of see how it works. First up, starting way over on the left, we find the National Democratic Institute for something or other and the National Endowment for Democracy. Look at the taxpayer funds, $167 million in the top case, $362 million in change in the lower case. And by the way, the only thing missing from their titles is, again, that possessive our, because this is a national endowment for our democracy, meaning for them, not for everybody else. And by the way, if you think these people are on your side or vice versa, you're on their side, that's not true. These people, they're self-interested. They don't care about you. Just kidding. They really don't. And so you look at this, and then they might get $362 million of NED taxpayer funds, and then they siphon off and throw $83 million to the right And it travels over until you end up over here at a place like the Windward Fund, receiving taxpayer funds, doling it out for this No Kings protesting. And by the way, Brian O'Shea writing, damn, quote, I see on the chart Windward. As you know, that's another Arabella B Corp entity, as you undoubtedly know. Arabella controls the 1630 Fund, the New Venture Fund, the Hopewell Fund, and the Windward Fund. Arabella itself was founded by the former Clinton administration appointee Eric Kessler. Oh, what a small world it is. And by the way, the 1630 Fund, New Venture Fund, Hopewell Fund, we've talked about them in the past. They are very busy donating money to anything that can help tear things down in this country and reinforce power for themselves. That's what they invest money in. People who are entrepreneurs invest money in positive ROI adventures, meaning I'm going to make a product or a service that delivers value, and I'm going to make a profit doing that. That's entrepreneurship. These people invest money in things that create chaos and destruction because that's their currency. That's where they get their power from. All right. Carry on. Go to Data Republican. You can dig through it. It's a big tangly weave, but I mean, this is just more of the partners listed on the No Kings page, right? And it goes on and on and on and on. I don't know what being a partner means. I don't know how many of these people are truly partners. I don't know how many of these people actually just had their logo, lifted and pulled and used. But how many of all of these would you suspect? How many of these actually depend on, or at least have some taxpayer dollar flows? How much am I supporting this? Quite a bit. Hi, I'm Chris Martinson, and I am thrilled to invite you to Peak Prosperity's exclusive in-person summit happening this September 12th, 13th, and 14th at Lake Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire. At this once-a-year in-person gathering, we take over the entire facility, which offers incredible privacy. And we offer incredible lectures, interactive content, and plenty of opportunity to settle in and allow free-thinking folks like you to come together and to connect, share ideas, and build real community. It's become something of a healthy family gathering, the one you always wanted to have. At Peak Prosperity, we speak the truth when the rest of the world seems committed to ignorance, if not outright lies. So this isn't just another event. It is a unique chance to join and get to know a select group of like-minded people who value clarity and courage, knowing what the future holds, and most importantly, how to make their families more resilient and prepared along every dimension. Spots are limited and we sell out every year. So if you're ready to dive deep, make meaningful connections, join the family, then come grab your tickets now at peakprosperity.com. Select a ticket plus any extras that you may need, such as a second ticket for a guest or upgraded lodging by filling out the simple form. It's that easy. The Peak Prosperity Annual Summit. Don't miss this once-a-year gathering. Evie and I would love to meet you. All right. Now, leaving aside just the potential for shenanigans here, the whole world changed just a couple weeks ago. And I don't know if you caught that, but Ukraine launched a really daring, shall I say, but game-changing drone attack inside Russia, and it looked like this. This is a truck here that got parked by the side of the road near a Russian airbase, and you will see lift coming out of the top of it right there. There's a drone loaded with explosives, and it flies off with its explosive package and flies into some planes and blows them up. So what did we learn in that adventure? Anybody with some adequate resources and training who can get a trailer, that's a 20-foot, that's a TEU. These things come in by the millions into the country. Miss just one of those, is loaded with something like this, and a lot of mayhem could be caused. Now, that genie is out of the bottle. Same thing just happened in Iran, with Israel very excitedly showing that they had Mossad agents pre-installing drone packages inside Iran, that they'd gotten in there somehow, and that when they wanted to pull the trigger on using them, they were able to cause a lot of mayhem, because this is almost impossible to defend against. And they don't have to have explosive packages, people. They could have long trailing gossamer fibers of that are conductive in some way, and they fly over an electrical substation. You just fly these things into power poles with conductive elements on them, and causing blackouts is very easy. But if you have explosives, lots of other mayhem could be caused. Now, is that a possibility here? Yeah, you betcha. And let me tell you why. In January of 2024, I took a trip into the heart of the Darien. Michael Jan invited me down. Ann Vandersteel, Brett Weinstein were there. Hi, Matt, if you're watching this. And Lance Holt, tons of great people. We went there. We got in a canoe, a dugout canoe, literal dugout canoe, and we went up 4 hours this river into the Darien Gap, right? And came out in after all of this, we're going up through the jungle, and there's caimans and parrots, and it's beautiful, and big morpho blue blood butterflies. And you get all the way up there, and there's a camp. And you know what's in the camp? Well, there's all these little like wood huts and everything, and there's people coming out of the jungle, and a lot of them were military-aged men from all over the world. China, Afghanistan, you name it. They were from all over the world. And by the way, it turned out that the HIAS facility, HIAS, this was the biggest facility just outside of the Darien Gap, where people would come out of the jungle first, and they would land at what's called the San Vicente camp, one of many large camps with places to take care of thousands and thousands of people who are coming through. And HIAS had a big facility there. It was one of the largest facilities at that camp. And by the way, Mayorkas, Secretary Mayorkas of the time, was a HIAS board member before he became there at HHS and was the head of HHS. He was the one who was just funneling in all of this. He was very, very pro. Let's just let as many millions of military-aged men into the country as possible. Now, listen, 99% of them could be totally, it's just a coincidence. They were military-aged dudes with no families. But if just 1% of them were actually sleeper cells, they're here with a mission. They're coming out of the military in whatever country they came from, or they're coming from some criminal organization, and they're actually an organized cell whose job it is for money or fun to cause trouble. That might be a problem. Now, the question isn't, do we have sleeper cells in this country now? The question is, how many do we have? Right? So Red Pill Drifter reporting, this gentleman here dropped in all the way over here. He dropped this video on, and he said that a contact of his said that at the Denver airport, they had already arrested over 50 Al-Qaeda members in the last 2 months. 50 Al-Qaeda members, right? And that there are other sleeper cells right there, and there could be CCP sleeper cells. That's just, okay, again, just a dude making a report. We do know that this hit the news that CCP-funded Chinese nationals were busted smuggling crop-destroying super fungus into the U.S. I don't know if that's true, that it was a super fungus, but they were caught with a wheat fungus that was very damaging for crops. It happens to be endemic already, but I'd love to see the genetics. Was that actually a super fungus? Because if so, not so good. So you got China in there. And by the way, what would it exactly look like if we had sleeper cells coming in deciding to cause mayhem in this country? Would it look any different than this? This is from the protests in LA just recently, right? Well, you'd have military-aged men with masks on their face to hide their identity, and they'd be causing mayhem. That's all taxpayer-funded police cars are going to have to be replaced and repaired and all of that now. So we already have trouble, and it's already being conducted by people who are here illegally. So call it a sleeper cell, call it what you want, but what would it look like if sleeper cells actually became activated, right? Back in January of this year, FBI Director Chris Wray, then FBI Director Chris Wray, said China has sleeper cells all over the United States. And we know that they've already embedded malware. Maybe you heard this, that they just said, oh, all of our solar panels and inverters have some Chinese malware, a backdoor installed, which could have shut them down, right? Oh, well, so our solar panels go off. But if you do that in the right order very quickly, you flick the solar panels on and off at some point, you create grid instability. You can knock out big chunks of the grid potentially. Or imagine, if you will, that this is a Chinese drone show, really absolutely fantastic and quite impressive. But imagine that these things are here with to do not here for amusement, but are here for some other purpose, like to cause destruction. This isn't This isn't CGI. This is reality. This is what it looks like. The level of precision and control. These are drones coming back in after the show to land in the little pods, right? So imagine... Turn that down a little bit. You all know what birds sound like. Imagine, if you will, these things are taking off. They're going the other way, and they all have little packages on them. The chance for mayhem is quite high. So imagine all this landing on electrical infrastructure, right? Boom. Okay, we're going to have a lot of trouble having electricity in that area. So, okay. Or what if we just have a good old-fashioned false flag attack? Of course, maybe blamed on Iran. And that brings us to having to discuss in part 2 of this for subscribers. We have to talk about this right now and why it's happening now and some context for it and where it could go next and what the scenarios are. But for now, I want everybody to be aware that June 14th, Saturday, if you're planning to go to one of these things, please keep your head on a swivel. Understand that there are people out there who want you to go to these things and want you to get trampled by a horse or die on film or otherwise get attacked and damaged so that they can use that as a recruitment tool for whatever else they have planned next. Remember, the reaction is the target. That's what they're looking for here, is your reaction or other people's reaction. They're looking for as much disruption and chaos as possible. You, as an ordinary thinking citizen, might go, wow, those people throwing the car, destroying cop cars, I'm not okay with that. You're not them. There are other people who look at that and go, yeah, that's good. That's great film. Thank you to whoever filmed that, because now we can use that and it conveys exactly what we want to have conveyed, which is that these people hate this country. They don't like it. They don't like white people. They don't like anybody having nice things. They absolutely are after as much chaos and destruction as possible. And you might say, well, why? Because that's where they gain their power from. They are organized and ready to use that chaos and destruction as the fuel for their own purposes. And that's the game. So we have to watch that. Be very careful. Keep your eyes out for what's happening around that. This is a perfect environment right now for things to get a little bit dicey, spicy, and then out of control. And there are people who are hoping and paying for that to happen. And that's where we are, which is why I want you to be prepared. I want you to understand that you should be prepared. Food, fuel, cash out of the bank, all sorts of stuff, the usual stuff we talk about at Peak Prosperity, just being prepared, nothing wrong with it. It's always a good thing. Why? So that you can be resilient. Why? So that if or when these things happen, you are disrupted the least and you can carry on and be part of the solution of helping to rebuild whatever just got broken. All right, for that, please just be safe this weekend. Thank you for that. And for everybody else, we're going back to talk about this because this is quite serious. Bye for now, everyone.